There's a book that religious authorities tried to bury for over 1,000 years. Not because it was false, but because it was too true. The Book of Enoch, written centuries before Moses ever touched a scroll, contains prophecies so disturbingly specific about our current moment that its exclusion from most Bibles suddenly feels less like theological disagreement and more like deliberate suppression. But here's what they couldn't erase. The New Testament itself quotes this forbidden text, validating its authority in the exact passage where Jude warns about the final judgment. If it was good enough for the apostles, why was it banned for everyone else? The answer might terrify you. Enoch wasn't just any prophet. He was the seventh generation from Adam, a man who walked in a world where people still remembered the Garden of Eden. He was so righteous that God took him alive. He never experienced death. He simply vanished from the earth, translated directly into God's presence. And before his departure, he was shown something that would make any mortal's blood run cold. Visions of the absolute end of human history, frame by frame, detail by detail. But there's a twist that changes everything. Enoch wasn't writing for his generation. The angels told him explicitly to seal these words, for a remote generation. For a people living in a specific time period who would witness signs so obvious that denial would require willful blindness. That generation might be us. And the evidence is becoming impossible to ignore. Starting from January 2026, we're watching patterns emerge that Enoch described with surgical precision and patterns that remained dormant for thousands of years and are now accelerating simultaneously. Not one at a time. Not gradually. All at once. 7 specific prophecies are unfolding before our eyes like a checklist being marked off by an unseen hand. And the final one involves a fire so consuming that it will literally melt the elements of creation at the atomic level. This is not a symbolic language or a metaphor. Enoch saw the physical dissolution of reality as we know it. But here's what makes this moment different from every other end times prediction you've ever heard. Enoch didn't just describe what would happen. He described the sequence. He gave us the exact order of events, the specific signs to watch for, and the cultural conditions that would mark the final generation. And when you line up his prophecies with current events such as the technology we're developing, the moral collapse we're witnessing, the spiritual apathy spreading through churches, you will find out that the alignment is so precise it feels like watching someone read tomorrow's newspaper from 3,000 years ago. The question isn't whether these prophecies are true anymore. The question is, are you paying attention? If you want to know which prophecies are unfolding right now and what they mean for humanity, kindly hit that subscribe button and comment what you think after watching this exposition, because what I'm about to show you in this video will give you a rethink about everything happening around you. Because what comes next will separate those who recognize the signs from those who laughed until the moment heaven opened. And according to Enoch, that separation is permanent. Here's the most terrifying part. Enoch says that moment comes without warning. One day the world will be going about its business, buying, selling, marrying, building, and the next day, everything humanity has ever built will be on fire. Not gradual decline. Not slow collapse. Instant, irreversible, absolute judgment. And the only people who survive are those who saw it coming and prepared their souls. So the real question is not, will this happen? The real question is, when the sky splits open, which side of history will you be standing on? Stay with me through this entire video because by the end you'll know exactly where you stand, and more importantly, what you need to do about it. Let's get started. Let's start with the prophecy that was so important, so undeniable, that it's the only one from Enoch's entire book that made it into the Bible. Jude 1 verses 14 to 15 quotes it directly. Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment on all. Now, most people read that verse and move on. Sunday school teachers gloss over it. Pastors mention it in passing. But stop for a second and actually absorb what's being said here. This isn't the gentle Jesus of children's Bible stories. This isn't a spiritual awakening or a private religious experience. This is a public confrontation. An arrival so undeniable, so physical, so overwhelming that every eye on earth will see it simultaneously. The sky will split open and an army will descend. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. And every person who spent their life mocking God, dismissing his warnings, and calling his followers delusional will have exactly 0 seconds to prepare for what happens next. Now here's where it gets chilling. The phrase 10,000s of his saints isn't just ancient poetry trying to say a lot. In the original manuscripts, it's myriads upon myriads, a number so vast it can't be counted, an innumerable army. And Enoch makes it clear, this isn't a peaceful delegation. They're not coming to negotiate. They're not coming to offer one last chance. They're coming to execute judgment. That word, execute, should make your stomach drop, because it means the verdict has already been decided. The trial is over. This is sentencing day. But here's what most people miss, and it's the detail that should keep you up at night. Enoch saw this army and described them not as ethereal angels floating on clouds, but as resurrected human beings. People who once walked this earth. People who were overlooked, persecuted, mocked, and martyred for their faith. They suffered in obscurity while the world celebrated itself. And now they're coming back, not as victims but as enforcers of divine justice. The same people the world ignored will be the ones executing judgment on those who ignored them. Think about that for a second. The homeless man you stepped over. The street preacher you laughed at. The family member you mocked for still believing that stuff. If they died in faith, Enoch says they're coming back with authority you can't comprehend. And the irony is so brutal it's almost poetic. The world spent centuries silencing the righteous, and in one day, it's the righteous who will silence the world. But Enoch didn't just see that this would happen. He saw why. And this is the part that connects everything. He recorded that this public arrival wouldn't occur randomly. It would happen at a very specific moment, when the earth reaches a tipping point, when the violence, corruption, and sheer arrogance of humanity become so extreme that they mirror one particular moment in history. A moment so catastrophic that it forced God to intervene in the most dramatic way possible. That moment was the days of Noah. And God's response then was total annihilation by water. But here's the thing that should make your blood run cold. God made a covenant after the flood. He promised never to destroy the earth by water again. Every rainbow you've ever seen is a reminder of that promise. So when humanity reaches that same level of corruption again, and Enoch makes it clear God won't break his promise. He won't use water. He'll use something else. Something that doesn't just cleanse the surface. Something that purifies down to the molecular level. Something that burns so hot it melts the very elements of creation. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we get to the fire, we need to understand the pattern. Because Enoch didn't just prophesy that history would repeat. He detailed exactly how it would repeat. He documented the specific sequence of corruption that led to the flood. And when you compare his ancient descriptions to what's happening right now in 2026, the parallels aren't just similar. They're identical. And that's not a coincidence. That's a warning. Because if the pattern matches, then the outcome is already written. The flood came suddenly without warning, while people were eating, drinking, marrying, and celebrating. They ignored Noah until the moment the rain started. And by then the door to the ark was already sealed. So the question isn't, will this happen? Enoch already answered that. The question is, are we living in the days that trigger it? And to answer that, we need to look at the second prophecy, the one that reveals we're not just similar to Noah's generation. We are Noah's generation, reborn in the 21st century with better technology and worse morals. And just like then, most people won't see it coming until it's already too late. Enoch lived just 7 generations from Adam. Let that sink in for a moment. When he walked the earth, there were people still alive who had heard first-hand accounts of the Garden of Eden. They remembered what the world was like before the fall, before death entered creation, before humanity's rebellion fractured everything. Enoch watched civilization emerge from those ashes. He saw cities rise, cultures form, and technology develop. But he also watched something else, something that terrified him so deeply he wrote it down as a warning for us. He watched it all rot from the inside. In his writings, Enoch describes a specific sequence of corruption that preceded the flood. It's not vague. It's not symbolic. It's a detailed, step-by-step documentation of how a civilization collapses morally before it collapses physically. And when you read his description and then look around at 2026, you don't just see similarities. You see an exact replay, like someone took his ancient manuscript and is using it as a blueprint. The pattern begins with Genesis 6 verse 5, and it's one of the most chilling verses in Scripture. Every intent of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil continually. Read that again slowly. Not occasionally evil. Not evil in moments of weakness or temptation. Continuously evil. The default setting of human thought had become wickedness. And Enoch elaborates on what that looked like in practice. The culture became so saturated with violence and sexual perversion that innocence itself was mocked. People who tried to resist the corruption, who tried to maintain moral standards, were treated as relics, outdated obstacles standing in the way of progress. Does that sound familiar? Because in 2026, we're living in a world where traditional values are called bigotry, where protecting children from sexualization is called oppression, where suggesting there are moral absolutes gets you labeled as a hateful extremist. The same mockery that defined Noah's generation is defining ours. But that's just the surface. The real horror is what was happening beneath it. Because the catalyst wasn't just human sin running wild. It was the introduction of forbidden knowledge by the Watchers, the angels who abandoned their assigned positions to directly interfere with humanity. Enoch records their names and what they taught. Azazel taught advanced metallurgy and weaponry, the technology of war and destruction. Semjaza taught enchantments and manipulation of nature. Others taught astrology, cosmetics designed specifically for seduction, and most disturbingly what ancient texts call the cutting of roots and signs, what modern scholars now believe refers to genetic manipulation, the altering of DNA, the corruption of the human genome itself. They didn't just corrupt human behavior, they corrupted human biology. The result was the Nephilim, hybrid beings that were never supposed to exist, creatures that carried corrupted genetics and represented a direct assault on the image of God in humanity. And this is why the flood had to be total. This is why God couldn't just reset human hearts. The genetic code itself had been compromised. The flood wasn't just judgment, it was a necessary purge to preserve an uncorrupted human bloodline through which the Messiah could eventually come. Now fast forward to 2026, and tell me we're not watching the exact same pattern unfold. We have AI systems making autonomous decisions that their own creators don't fully understand. Knowledge that surpasses human wisdom but lacks human conscience. We have CRISPR gene editing technology that allows us to alter the human genome like we're editing a document, creating designer babies, and eliminating genetic diseases, sure, but also opening the door to creating new kinds of humans entirely. We have weapons so devastating that entire nations could be erased in under an hour. We have surveillance systems that track every movement, every purchase, every conversation. The forbidden knowledge that was buried under the flood is back, repackaged with modern terminology, and we're sprinting toward it with the same breathless excitement as Noah's generation. And just like them, the people wielding this technology have the same fatal flaw. They believe they're too advanced, too enlightened, too scientifically sophisticated to face divine judgment. They think their intelligence has evolved them beyond accountability to God. They're physically incapable of imagining that the creator who designed DNA might have an opinion about them redesigning it. But here's the detail that connects Enoch's second prophecy directly to our moment, and it's the one that should terrify every believer. Right before the flood came, Enoch recorded that a mass defection occurred among those who once claimed to follow God. These weren't pagans. These weren't unbelievers. These were people who knew the truth, who had been warned by Noah for decades, who understood what was coming. But they looked at the rising culture around them, its sophistication, its pleasures, its mockery of primitive faith, and they made a choice. They slowly, quietly blended in. They stopped resisting. They stopped standing out. They convinced themselves they could maintain their beliefs privately while publicly conforming to the culture. And by the time the rain started, they were so integrated into the corrupted world that they drowned with it. Which brings us to Enoch's third prophecy, and it's the one that's happening right now inside churches across the world. It's called the Great Apostasia, the mass falling away. And it's not coming from outside persecution. It's coming from comfortable compromise. The Apostle Paul warned about it in his letter to the Thessalonians. Jesus predicted it in Matthew 24. But Enoch didn't just predict it. He detailed it with the precision of someone who had seen it unfold frame by frame. He described a future generation where the greatest threat to the faithful wouldn't come from government persecution, wouldn't come from hostile atheists, wouldn't even come from external opposition. It would come from internal erosion. A mass falling away so gradual, so subtle, so perfectly camouflaged as progress, that most people wouldn't even realize they'd abandoned the faith until they were standing before God trying to explain why they rewrote His words to make themselves more comfortable. The Greek word for this phenomenon is apostasia, and it doesn't mean ignorance or confusion. It means a deliberate departure, a calculated defection, a knowing abandonment of truth. And here's what makes this prophecy so personally devastating. It's not talking about atheists who never believed. It's not talking about pagans who worship other gods. It's talking about believers. People who still show up to church on Sunday. People who still post Bible verses on social media. People who still use all the right religious language and know all the right Christian buzzwords. But somewhere along the way, in a series of small compromises they barely noticed, they stopped actually believing that God meant what He said. They started treating Scripture like a buffet. Take what tastes good, leave what feels harsh. They became what the Book of Revelation describes with cutting accuracy, lukewarm. Not cold enough to be obvious enemies of the faith, but not hot enough to actually be faithful. And God's response to that condition isn't gentle correction or patient understanding. It's visceral rejection. I will spit you out of my mouth. In 2026, we're not approaching this apostasia. We're drowning in it. We're watching it play out in real time across every major denomination. Churches are systematically removing the word sin from their vocabulary because it might offend someone. Pastors are delivering therapeutic affirmations that sound like TED Talks instead of prophetic warnings that sound like Scripture. Entire denominations have held votes, actual democratic votes, to rewrite doctrines that stood for 2,000 years, all to align with whatever cultural trend is currently popular. And the justification is always the same. We're making Christianity more accessible. We're being more loving. We're meeting people where they are. But Enoch saw through that facade 3,000 years before it happened. He saw the shepherds abandon their posts, not because wolves attacked, but because the sheep wanted softer grass and the shepherds cared more about attendance numbers than truth. He saw churches that looked full but were spiritually empty, led by hirelings more interested in comfort than conviction, more concerned with growth metrics than the actual condition of souls under their care. And the sheep? The sheep are lulled into such complete complacency that they wander straight toward the fire without ever realizing they left the fold. They're so convinced they're still on the path that they'll be genuinely shocked when they hear, "I never knew you. Depart from me." They'll point to their church attendance, their charitable donations, their positive social media presence. And it won't matter, because they chose comfort over truth and tolerance over holiness, and cultural acceptance over costly discipleship. But here's what's even more disturbing than institutional compromise. Beneath this mass defection, something else is happening. Something quieter. Something that doesn't make headlines or cause church splits. It's happening in individual hearts, one believer at a time, and Enoch identified it as the silent killer of faith in the final generation. There's no doubt. It's not confusing. It's not even an intentional rebellion. It's something far more insidious because it masquerades as maturity. It presents itself as realism. It disguises itself as wisdom. Jesus named it explicitly in Matthew 24 verse 12. Because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Not some. Not a few. Many. And the trigger isn't persecution, it's lawlessness. When evil is normalized, when justice becomes subjective, when truth is treated as opinion, something happens to the human heart that's even more dangerous than hatred. It goes numb. Enoch saw this pattern in the pre-flood world and recorded it specifically for the last days. He described a generation that would be so overwhelmed by the sheer relentless volume of wickedness that outrage would be replaced by apathy, compassion would be replaced by cynicism, and righteous anger would be replaced by exhausted resignation. The faithful wouldn't be defeated by opposition. They'd be defeated by fatigue. They wouldn't lose their faith in a dramatic crisis. They'd lose it gradually, imperceptibly, through 1,000 small disconnections until one day they'd realize their heart had gone completely cold and they didn't even know when it happened. And that coldness, that quiet, creeping numbness, is spreading through the church like a plague. It's the believers who used to pray fervently but now just go through the motions. It's the ones who used to burn with passion for the lost but now can't be bothered to share their faith because everyone's on their own journey. It's the ones who used to stand for truth but now stay silent because speaking up just isn't worth the social cost anymore. And Enoch warns that this silent epidemic of cold hearts, is the final test before the fire falls. Because when your love grows cold, you don't just lose your passion. You lose your immunity to the very deception that's about to consume the world. Jesus didn't mince words in Matthew 24 verse 12. He said it explicitly, almost clinically, because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Not some. Not a few isolated believers who were weak to begin with. Many. And notice what triggers it. It's not persecution. It's not martyrdom. It's not the government kicking down your door and demanding you deny Christ. It's lawlessness. It's the normalization of evil. It's watching justice get perverted day after day until you stop expecting fairness. It's more like seeing truth become completely subjective until you're exhausted from arguing about what reality even is anymore. And when that happens, when evil stops being shocking and just becomes background noise, something happens to the human heart that's more dangerous than hatred or rebellion. It goes numb. Enoch saw this exact pattern in the pre-flood world, and he recorded it specifically as a warning for the last days. He described a generation that would be so completely overwhelmed by the sheer relentless volume of wickedness that their capacity for outrage would simply burn out. He saw believers whose compassion would be replaced by cynicism, whose righteous anger would be replaced by exhausted resignation, whose fire for God would dim to barely flickering embers. And here's the tragic irony. They wouldn't be defeated by external opposition. They'd be defeated by fatigue, by the slow, grinding weariness of caring about things that nobody else seems to care about anymore. And that's exactly what's happening right now in 2026. We're drowning in bad news. Every single day it's another war, another scandal, another injustice, another revelation of corruption at the highest levels. It's relentless. It's overwhelming. It's designed to be overwhelming. And after years of this deluge, people aren't rising up anymore. They're not organizing. They're not protesting. They're not even getting angry. They're tuning out. They're scrolling past. They're protecting what's left of their mental health by simply disengaging from anything that requires emotional investment. Even believers, people who should be standing firm, who should be the salt and light in a decaying world, are quietly stepping back. You hear it in their language, "There's nothing I can do anyway. It's all in God's hands. I'm just trying to focus on my own life." And on the surface that sounds almost spiritual. But underneath, It's surrender disguised as trust. It's apathy disguised as peace. The love that once burned hot for truth, for justice, for the lost souls around them, it's flickering like a candle in the wind. And most people don't even realize it's happening. Because here's the insidious trap that Enoch warned about. When your love grows cold, you don't notice you're slipping. There's no dramatic moment where you consciously decide to abandon your faith. Instead, you rationalize. You tell yourself you're just being realistic instead of naive. You convince yourself that passion is for the young and immature, and that true maturity means lowering your expectations. You start believing that endurance is pointless because nothing ever changes anyway. And slowly, imperceptibly, through 1,000 small compromises and accommodations and quiet surrenders, you drift away from the faith, not through a spectacular fall, but through gradual erosion. You stop praying fervently because it feels like shouting into the void. You stop sharing your faith because nobody wants to hear it anyway and you're tired of being labeled intolerant. You stop standing up for truth because the social cost is too high and you've got your own problems to deal with. And one day you wake up and realize your heart has gone completely cold and you can't even remember when it started happening. But here's what Enoch reveals that changes everything. This epidemic isn't random. This isn't just the natural consequence of living in a broken world. This is engineered. The same forbidden knowledge that corrupted the pre-flood world is back, but it's evolved. It's not just metallurgy and weapons anymore. It's psychological warfare operating at a scale that would have been impossible in any previous generation. It's algorithms designed to keep you angry and divided. It's media constructed specifically to demoralize and overwhelm. It's entertainment that normalizes evil and mocks goodness until you can't tell the difference anymore. It's technology that promises connection but delivers isolation. It's information overload calibrated to make you feel helpless and insignificant. It's a systematic assault on the human capacity for love, hope, and faith, designed to disconnect you from your Creator by convincing you that caring is foolish and trust is weakness. And the architects of this deception? They're not new. Enoch knew their names 3,000 years ago. He documented their strategy, their methods, their ultimate goal. They're called the Watchers, the fallen angels who first introduced forbidden knowledge to humanity, who first taught humans how to weaponize intelligence without wisdom, how to gain power without accountability. And their curriculum? It's back in session. Technology has changed. The delivery methods are more sophisticated, but the fundamental strategy remains identical. Give humanity just enough knowledge to believe it doesn't need God anymore. And in 2026, class is in session and humanity is racing toward graduation without realizing the diploma comes with a price tag written on fire. In the Book of Enoch, the Watchers aren't portrayed as the cartoonish red-skinned demons you see in medieval paintings. They're depicted as cold, calculating strategists who understood one fundamental truth about human nature. You don't have to force humanity into rebellion. You don't need chains or threats or obvious evil. You just have to give them the tools to believe they don't need God anymore. Give them enough knowledge to feel powerful, enough technology to feel independent, enough progress to feel evolved beyond the need for divine authority. And they'll walk themselves straight into damnation while calling it enlightenment. The primary weapon? Knowledge without wisdom. Power without accountability. Progress without moral boundaries. Enoch records the specific gifts these beings taught with disturbing precision. Azazel taught the making of swords, knives, shields, and breastplates, the technology of war and violence. Semjaza taught enchantments and root cutting, the manipulation of nature and the bending of natural laws. Armoros taught the resolving of enchantments. Barakijal taught astrology and the reading of signs. Kokabel taught the constellations and celestial mysteries. And most disturbingly, several of them taught what the ancient text calls the cutting of roots and signs, what modern biblical scholars now believe refers to genetic manipulation, the altering of DNA, the fundamental rewriting of the natural order of creation itself. These weren't party tricks. These were advanced sciences being downloaded into a civilization that had no moral framework to handle them. And the result? Corruption so complete that God had to wipe the slate clean with a flood. Now look at 2026 and tell me with a straight face that we're not watching the exact same curriculum being taught again. We have artificial intelligence that writes novels, composes music, creates art, and makes autonomous decisions. Knowledge that surpasses human understanding but completely lacks human conscience or moral reasoning. We have CRISPR gene editing technology that allows us to modify the human genome like we're editing a Word document, creating designer babies with selected traits, eliminating genetic diseases before birth, but also cracking wide open the door to engineering entirely new kinds of humans that have never existed in God's creation. We have weaponry so devastatingly advanced that entire nations could be erased from existence in under an hour with the push of a button. We have surveillance systems powered by facial recognition and data mining that track every movement, every purchase, every conversation, every relationship. The Watcher's curriculum is back in session. The textbooks have been updated with modern terminology, but the lesson plan is identical. Give humanity godlike power without godlike character and watch what happens. And just like in Enoch's day, humanity is sprinting toward these technologies with breathless, almost religious excitement. Every breakthrough is celebrated. Every boundary crossed is called progress. Scientists are winning Nobel Prizes for work that previous generations would have recognized as playing God. Tech billionaires are being worshipped like prophets for creating systems they themselves admit they don't fully understand or control. And the entire time nobody, absolutely nobody in a position of power, is pausing to ask the one question that could save us. Just because we can do something, does that mean we should? That question isn't being asked because asking it would require admitting there's a moral authority higher than human innovation. It would require acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, there are boundaries we're not supposed to cross, lines that exist for a reason, limits placed by a creator who actually knows what he's doing. But that admission would puncture the entire mythology of modern progress, which insists that humanity is on an inevitable upward trajectory toward godhood, that every limitation is meant to be overcome, that every boundary is meant to be shattered. So instead we charge forward. We edit genes without knowing the long-term consequences. We create AI without understanding how it actually thinks. We build weapons we pray we never have to use. We construct surveillance states and tell ourselves it's for safety. We're crossing every line the Watchers first taught humanity to cross, and we're doing it faster, more efficiently, and with more devastating potential than ever before in history. But here's what makes Enoch's fifth prophecy so urgently terrifying. He didn't just warn that this forbidden knowledge would return. He warned about what would happen next. He saw the specific outcome that this technology produces when it's placed in the hands of a morally bankrupt generation. He watched it play out once in the pre-flood world, and he was shown that it would play out again in the last days. And the outcome isn't gradual decline. It's not slow moral decay. It's a sudden, catastrophic tipping point where humanity crosses a line so fundamental, so absolute, that God has no choice but to intervene before we annihilate ourselves and corrupt creation beyond redemption. Because here's what history teaches and Enoch confirmed. When mortals play God, they don't just fail spectacularly. They don't just make mistakes. They unleash consequences so dire that divine intervention becomes an act of mercy, not just for the righteous, but for creation itself. And we're not approaching that line anymore. We're standing on it. Some would argue we've already crossed it. The genetic experiments are already happening. The AI is already making decisions. The weapons already exist. The surveillance is already operational. Which means the next prophecy isn't about what's coming. It's about what happens when you cross boundaries that were never meant to be crossed. There's a line, a boundary, a point of absolute no return. Enoch saw it clearly. God established it deliberately. And when humanity crosses it, history doesn't just take a dark turn or enter a difficult season. It ends. Completely. Irrevocably. In Genesis 6 verse 3, Right before the floodwaters began to rise, God makes a declaration so chilling it should be written in fire across every laboratory and research facility on earth. My spirit shall not strive with man forever. Read that again. There's a limit to divine patience, a point where God stops warning and starts acting. And Enoch recorded something crucial about this boundary. It's not arbitrary. It's not based on how many sins humanity commits or how loud the music gets at their parties. The line is crossed when humanity's corruption becomes genetic, when the created stops accepting what it is and attempts to remake itself in its own image, playing creator without the wisdom, authority, or right to do so. The Nephilim were the result of that exact transgression in Enoch's day. These weren't metaphors or myths. They were literal hybrid beings that were never meant to exist. Creatures that carried corrupted DNA, beings that distorted the divine image stamped on humanity at creation. They were the physical evidence that fallen angels had taught humans how to manipulate the fundamental code of life itself. And God's response wasn't a stern warning or a chance to course correct. It was absolute and total. The flood wiped them out. Every single one. Not because God is cruel or lacks patience, but because there was literally no other way to preserve an uncorrupted human bloodline through which the promised Messiah could eventually come. The corruption had gone genetic. It had infected the species at the DNA level. And if God had allowed it to continue, there would have been no pure human left through whom salvation could enter the world. Now fast forward to 2026, and understand that we're not talking about science fiction anymore. We're not discussing hypothetical scenarios or dystopian novels. We are actively editing human embryos in laboratories right now. We are creating human-animal chimeras, actual hybrid organisms with mixed DNA, for research purposes. We are developing artificial intelligence with decision-making capabilities that rival and in some cases exceed human cognition, and we're doing it without fully understanding how these systems actually think or what their long-term implications might be. We have crossed from the age of discovery into the age of creation. And the people doing this aren't rogue mad scientists working in secret underground bunkers. They're celebrated innovators. They're receiving multi-million-dollar grants from governments and universities. They're giving TED Talks to standing ovations. They're being hailed as the pioneers of human evolution, the architects of our transcendent future. But Enoch saw what they categorically refused to see. Every boundary God established serves a specific purpose. Those limits aren't arbitrary restrictions designed to keep humanity small or limit our potential. They're guardrails on a mountain road. When you remove the fence, you don't get freedom and open possibilities. You get the cliff. You get the 1,000-foot drop that ends in total destruction. And we're not cautiously walking toward that cliff anymore, periodically checking our position and reconsidering our direction. We're running toward it. We're sprinting with our eyes closed, shouting about progress and breakthrough and the unstoppable march of human achievement. The genetic experiments are accelerating. The transhumanist agenda, the literal belief that we should use technology to evolve beyond our humanity, is mainstream now, discussed openly in Silicon Valley boardrooms and academic conferences. The AI is learning and evolving faster than its own creators can track or control. It's all accelerating toward the exact same tipping point that triggered the flood. The same corruption. The same arrogance. The same fatal belief that humanity has evolved beyond the need for divine boundaries. We're repeating the pattern with such precision it's like we're reading from Enoch's manuscript and using it as an instruction manual instead of a warning. Except this time, and this is where Enoch's prophecy becomes truly terrifying, God won't use water. He made a covenant. Every rainbow in the sky is a reminder of his promise. Never again will floodwaters destroy all life on earth. So when humanity crosses that genetic boundary again, when we corrupt the image of God in humanity beyond redemption one more time, God won't break his word. He won't use water. This time, according to Enoch and confirmed by Peter in the New Testament, the earth is reserved for something far more absolute. Something that doesn't just wash away the corruption on the surface. something that purifies down to the atomic level, that dissolves the very elements of creation, that burns so hot and so completely that nothing corrupted can survive it. This time the judgment won't be by flood. It will be by fire. And unlike water that recedes and allows life to start again, this fire doesn't just cleanse. It remakes. It doesn't reset the world. It ends one world and begins another. And the signs that we're approaching that moment, they're not subtle anymore. They're not hidden in ancient texts requiring expert interpretation. They're happening in real time, documented in peer-reviewed journals and broadcast on the evening news. The boundary is right in front of us, and we're about to cross it. Peter doesn't use poetic language or veiled symbolism in 2 Peter 3 verse 7. He states it as plainly as possible. The heavens and the earth, which are now preserved by the same word, are reserved for fire until the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. The flood was judgment by water, a complete reset that wiped the slate clean and started humanity over with 8 people and an ark full of animals. But the final judgment, the one that ends human history as we know it, that's judgment by fire. And Enoch didn't just predict this fire. He saw it. He was taken in vision to the place where it's being stored, and what he describes should make every person alive stop and reconsider how they're living. In his visions, Enoch describes being transported to a location beyond normal reality where he saw 7 mountains of magnificent stones, and in the center of these mountains, one peak that reached toward heaven itself, its summit shaped like a throne. But it wasn't the throne that made him tremble. It was what surrounded it. He saw reservoirs of fire, not small flames, not campfires or forest fires or even volcanic eruptions. Reservoirs, massive, contained oceans of fire, stored and waiting, held back only by the direct command of God. And the angel guiding him told him explicitly, these fires are reserved. They're not for now. They're being held for a specific moment, for the day when the earth itself must be purged of every single trace of corruption, when the very atoms that make up this fallen world need to be dissolved and remade. This isn't metaphorical fire. Enoch doesn't describe it in spiritual or symbolic terms. He describes it as a literal elemental force, something that operates at the level of physics itself, something that will dissolve the very building blocks of matter. And Peter, writing centuries later under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, confirms exactly what Enoch saw. The elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. Think about what that means. The elements aren't just trees and buildings. That's the Greek word stoicheia, the fundamental components of physical reality. We're talking about atomic bonds breaking down, molecular structures dissolving, the very fabric of creation experiencing heat so intense that matter itself can't maintain coherence. Everything humanity has ever built, every skyscraper reaching toward heaven in defiance, every monument to human achievement, every system of power and control and wealth, all of it will be reduced to absolutely nothing in moments. Not damaged, not partially destroyed. Completely, utterly, atomically annihilated. The pyramids that have stood for thousands of years? Gone. The great cities of earth with their millions of inhabitants? Gone. The wealth stored in vaults, the knowledge stored in servers, the power concentrated in governments? All of it, every single trace, burned away as if it never existed. But here's the critical detail that most people miss when they read about this fire, the part that makes it urgent instead of distant. Enoch didn't see this as some far-off theoretical event scheduled for the end of an undefined timeline. He saw specific signs that would immediately precede it. Markers that would tell the watching generation, this is it, the fire is next. And one of the clearest signs he identifies is the sudden, catastrophic collapse of human government coupled with the public revelation of the one who will occupy the eternal throne. Not a gradual transition of power. Not a peaceful transfer of authority. A collapse. Every system that has ever claimed ultimate authority over human beings, every kingdom, every empire, every democracy, every dictatorship, all of them falling simultaneously as the true king steps onto the world stage and takes his rightful place. Which means we're not just gradually approaching some distant fire that might happen in a few more generations. We're approaching the moment when every earthly authority gets stripped away in an instant and the true king is revealed in undeniable, physical, terrifying glory. And when that happens, the world won't have the luxury of debate. There won't be panels of experts discussing whether this is real. There won't be fact-checkers analyzing the footage. There won't be skeptics offering alternative explanations. The world will have exactly one option: bow. Not out of religious devotion or spiritual enlightenment, but out of sheer physical inability to do anything else in the presence of that much power and authority and holiness. And here's what Enoch makes absolutely clear. The time between that king's arrival and the unleashing of the fire isn't measured in years or even months. It's measured in moments. The king appears. The earthly systems collapse. The judgment is pronounced. And the fire that's been held in reserve since before the foundation of the world is finally, irrevocably released. But before that fire falls, before those elements melt, before creation itself dissolves in fervent heat, there's one more event that has to happen. One more prophecy that must be fulfilled. Because while the rebellious will be begging mountains to fall on them and hide them from the face of the king, there's another group present at that moment. A group the world never saw coming. A group that's been hidden, overlooked, and dismissed throughout all of history. And their sudden appearance, their unveiling at the exact moment of the king's return, will shock the world almost as much as the king himself. Enoch saw the throne. And this is critical to understand. He didn't see the throne that exists in heaven, the one that's been occupied since before creation. He saw the throne that will be established on earth. A physical throne in a physical location, occupied by a physical king who will rule over actual nations with actual authority that no human government can challenge or resist. In his visions, Enoch describes the elect one, the chosen king, sitting in judgment, and standing before him in absolute terror are all the kings of the earth, all the mighty and powerful, all who possess land and wealth and influence. And at that moment, none of it matters. Their wealth? Worthless. Their armies? Powerless. Their influence, their authority, the empires they built, the legacy they were so desperate to secure, all of it evaporates like morning mist in his presence. These are people who spent their entire lives accumulating power, who crushed anyone who stood in their way, who believed they were untouchable. And now they're standing before actual ultimate authority, and they're realizing with soul-crushing clarity that they were never in control of anything. And here's what makes this prophecy so urgently relevant to 2026. Enoch saw that this arrival wouldn't happen after centuries of gradual decline, after humanity has exhausted every option and slowly collapsed into chaos. It would happen suddenly. At a moment when humanity actually believes it has finally achieved stability, when the world thinks it's figured things out, when people are convinced that we've moved past the need for divine intervention because human innovation has solved our problems. Paul confirms this exact timing in 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 3, "For when they say, 'peace and safety,' then sudden destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape." That word sudden isn't gradual. It's not a slow build. It's instantaneous. And the comparison to labor pains is deliberate. When those contractions start, there's no stopping them, no negotiating with them, no postponing the birth. It's happening whether you're ready or not. But before that throne is established, before the king takes his seat and pronounces judgment, something has to happen first. And Enoch saw this part clearly: the complete, catastrophic collapse of every human system that has ever claimed ultimate authority over people's lives. Every government that said, "We are the highest power." Every economic system that said, "Security comes through us." Every religious institution that partnered with earthly power instead of eternal truth. All of it, every empire, every ideology, every system of control, crumbles. Not through human revolution or political upheaval, but through direct divine intervention. Enoch saw the kings of the earth, the presidents and prime ministers and dictators, the billionaires and power brokers, the ones who shaped policy and controlled narratives. He saw them literally begging the mountains to fall on them and hide them from the face of the one sitting on the throne. Revelation 6 verses 15 to 16 records their exact words. Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. These are people who have faced down armies, who have stared down opponents without flinching, who built their entire identity on being fearless and powerful. And they're begging rocks to crush them because facing the king is more terrifying than death itself. Why such absolute terror? Because this isn't a king who can be bribed with campaign donations. This isn't a ruler who can be manipulated with blackmail or influenced with lobbying. This isn't a government that can be overthrown with enough popular support. This is the king whose very words hold the universe together at the atomic level. When he speaks judgment, it's not a legal opinion that can be appealed or a political decision that can be reversed. It's a fact, a declaration of reality that the universe itself immediately bends to enforce. But here's the twist that Enoch makes absolutely clear, the detail that transforms this from pure terror into something far more complex. While the rebellious, the kings and the mighty and the arrogant, are paralyzed with fear, literally unable to stand in his presence, there's another group there too. A group that's been completely invisible throughout human history, overlooked and dismissed and forgotten by the world's power structures. A group nobody saw coming. And their sudden appearance at the king's right hand, their unveiling in glory at the exact moment of his arrival, shocks the world almost more than the king himself. Because the people the world celebrated, the influencers, the celebrities, the titans of industry, the political giants, they're the ones begging the mountains for death. But the people the world ignored? The ones who were mocked, marginalized, and forgotten? They're standing in white robes with their names written in the Book of Life, and the universe is about to witness the most complete reversal in all of history. Because the hidden are about to be revealed. And when they are, everyone will finally understand that the whole time, they were looking at the wrong people. Throughout his writings, Enoch refers again and again to the righteous, the elect, and the holy ones. He mentions them constantly, describes their fate, details their reward. But there's one detail that's incredibly easy to miss if you're reading quickly, and it changes everything about how we understand the end times. He describes them as hidden. Not hiding in fear like fugitives running from persecution. Not concealed because they're ashamed or defeated. Hidden by God, deliberately, intentionally kept in obscurity during the entire age of deception. Tucked away from the spotlight. Removed from the world's attention. Invisible to the systems of power and influence. And when the king arrives and establishes his throne on earth, they don't stay hidden anymore. In one singular moment of cosmic revelation, they're unveiled in glory, and the world that spent centuries ignoring them, dismissing them, mocking them as irrelevant, that world suddenly realizes with devastating clarity that these nobodies were the ones who mattered all along. Enoch saw this unveiling and described it in vivid, almost cinematic terms. The righteous will appear in the light of the sun, and the elect in the light of eternal life. One moment they're invisible, overlooked, forgotten. The next moment they're radiating glory, clothed in white garments that represent their vindication. Their names the world never bothered to learn, written permanently before the throne of God. Not as footnotes. Not as background characters. As the honored ones. The victors. The ones who actually won. But here's the part that makes this prophecy so deeply personal, so accessible to anyone listening. These aren't spiritual superheroes. Enoch isn't describing people with extraordinary supernatural gifts or once-in-a-generation faith. These are ordinary people who simply made one critical decision and then refused to reverse it no matter what it cost them. They refused to compromise when everyone else did. They're the single mom who kept praying every morning even when prayer became socially unacceptable, even when her kids rolled their eyes, even when she felt utterly alone. They're the employee who refused to participate in the office mockery of Christians, who quietly declined the invitations to compromise their values, who endured being passed over for promotions because they wouldn't play the game. They're the college students who kept speaking truth even when truth became classified as hate speech, who absorbed the contempt of professors and peers, who graduated without the prestigious connections because they wouldn't pretend to believe lies. They're the ones who endured mockery at family gatherings, isolation in their communities, financial loss when they refused to compromise their integrity. Not because they were stronger than everyone else. Not because they had more willpower or better theology or superior spiritual genetics. But because somewhere deep in their soul, they believed God's promises were more real than their circumstances. They believed the invisible kingdom was more substantial than the visible world. And they held on. Not perfectly. Enoch doesn't describe them as people who never stumbled or doubted or struggled. Not without moments of weakness where they almost gave up. But they held on. When every logical reason told them to let go, when the cost kept rising and the relief never came, when it would have been so easy to just quietly blend in and make the pain stop, they held on. And that decision, repeated daily over years and decades, is what separates them from everyone else. And in 2026, they're still here. Still hidden. Still completely overlooked by the algorithms and trending topics and cultural gatekeepers. The world celebrates influencers whose fame lasts for a viral cycle. It worships billionaires whose empires will crumble in the fire. It obsesses over celebrities whose names will be forgotten within a generation. These are the people with millions of followers, with magazine covers, with Wikipedia pages documenting their achievements. But God has names written in His book that the world has never heard. Names of people who never trended, who never went viral, who lived and died in obscurity according to every earthly metric of significance. And when those names are called, when they're read aloud before the throne in front of the assembled universe, everyone will witness the most complete reversal in all of history. The first will be last, and the last will be first. The celebrated will be forgotten, and the forgotten will be celebrated forever. The influencer with 10 million followers? Nobody will remember them. But the nurse who prayed for her patients when nobody was watching? Her name is written in eternal glory. The billionaire who built an empire? It's already burning. But the janitor who faithfully served while everyone looked past him? He's being clothed in white and given a crown. But before that vindication comes, before the hidden are revealed and the world sees who actually mattered, there's one final event that every prophecy, every warning, every sign has been building toward. The event that Enoch saw as simultaneously an ending and a beginning. The moment when fire doesn't just judge the wicked. The moment when fire transforms everything. And it's not some distant future event marked on a theological timeline thousands of years from now. According to every sign Enoch gave us, according to every pattern he documented, according to every prophecy we've just examined, it's closer than anyone thinks. The fire is kindled. The king is at the door. And the only question left is, when it falls, which side will you be on? This is where Enoch's prophecies stop being a warning and become a promise. Everything we've walked through, every terrifying vision, every pattern of judgment, every sign of the end, it all converges here at this singular moment of transformation. And here's what reframes the entire narrative. The fire that absolutely terrifies the rebellious is the exact same fire that purifies the faithful. The flames that consume and obliterate the corrupt world are the identical flames that forge the new creation. Same fire. Opposite outcomes. And what determines which outcome you experience isn't your power, your wealth, or your influence. It's what you're made of when the heat arrives. And what emerges from this fire isn't a patched-up version of the old world. It's not Earth with some renovations and upgrades, humanity 2.0 with better features. It's something entirely, fundamentally, gloriously new. Enoch saw it in his visions with such clarity that his descriptions have echoed through millennia. He saw a new heaven and a new earth where death doesn't just become rare or manageable, it ceases to exist as a concept. Where pain isn't merely healed or treated, It becomes a forgotten memory, erased so completely from reality that trying to recall it would be like grasping at smoke. Where corruption and evil can't even take root, can't find any soil to grow in, because righteousness doesn't just visit occasionally or appear for special occasions. It dwells there permanently. It's the atmosphere. It's woven into the molecular structure of existence itself. The very nature of reality is different. The laws that govern this new creation operate on principles we can barely imagine. And the ones who inherit this kingdom? They're not the ones who were powerful in the old world, not the ones who dominated headlines or accumulated fortunes or commanded armies. They're the ones who were faithful, the ones who held on through the mockery, the ones who endured through the isolation, the ones who believed God's promises when every visible circumstance screamed that those promises were lies. But here's the revelation that transforms everything we've discussed, from judgment into hope, from terror into anticipation. The fire isn't the enemy. The fire is the midwife. Think about what a refiner does with precious metal. He doesn't destroy the gold, he burns away everything that isn't gold. The impurities, the dross, the contamination. It all gets consumed by the heat, leaving behind only what's pure and valuable and eternal. This final cosmic fire operates on the same principle but at universal scale. It burns away everything temporary, everything false, everything built on foundations that can't withstand the heat. For those who built their lives on truth, actual truth, not their version of it, on genuine faith tested through suffering, on sacrificial love that cost them something real, what emerges from the fire is more glorious, more complete, more beautiful than what went in. The fire doesn't destroy them. It reveals them. It perfects them. It burns away every last trace of corruption and pain and limitation, leaving behind only what's eternal. But for those who built their entire existence on lies they convinced themselves were sophisticated philosophy, on selfishness they rebranded as self-care, on pride they called confidence, on the temporary approval of other temporary humans, the fire reveals a devastating truth they spent their whole lives running from. There was never anything real there at all. Their achievements were illusion. Their legacy was smoke. And when the fire burns through the facade, absolutely nothing remains. And Enoch makes one thing crystal clear across all his writings. This isn't a cosmic accident, isn't Plan B because humanity failed Plan A, isn't God scrambling to salvage a situation that got out of control. This is the planned culmination of all history from before the foundation of the world. Every prophecy spoken, every warning delivered, every opportunity given to repent and turn back, it was all leading here. To the singular moment when God makes good on the promise he's been declaring since Eden fell. Behold, I make all things new. Not some things, not most things, not just the parts we think deserve saving. All things. Total transformation. Complete renewal. The absolute end of one age and the unstoppable beginning of another that will never, ever end. But there's one question Enoch's 7 prophecies force every single person to confront right now. One question that determines which side of the fire you're on when it falls. And it's not what most people expect. It's not, do you believe this will happen? Because intellectual belief changes nothing. It's not even, are you ready? Because that implies you still have time to prepare at your convenience. The question is simpler and infinitely more personal. When the fire comes, and it is coming, what will it find in you? Will it find a life built on the unshakable foundation of faith in God? Will it find gold, silver, precious stones, things that emerge more beautiful after testing? Or will it find wood, hay, stubble, a life constructed from temporary pleasures, human approval, and things that are already turning to ash in your hands? Because Enoch saw 7 prophecies. 7 specific, identifiable markers. And in 2026, all 7 are active. Not approaching. Not theoretical. Active. The public confrontation is imminent. The pattern of Noah is complete. The apostasia is in full effect. Hearts everywhere are growing cold. Forbidden knowledge is being wielded without wisdom. The boundaries have been crossed. The fire is stored and ready. The countdown isn't coming. It's already running. And the only choice that matters is whether you'll be hidden with the righteous when the king arrives, or standing with the kings of the earth, begging mountains to crush you rather than face his glory. The book was sealed for the last days. The seal is broken, and the fire is already kindled. If you've made it to the end of this video, you're not here by accident. Something in your spirit recognizes the weight of this moment we're living in. Here's what I need you to do. Subscribe to this channel right now. Not because I need the numbers, but because you need to stay connected to what's happening. The prophecies aren't slowing down, and I'm committed to documenting every single one as they unfold. When you subscribe, you're not just joining a YouTube channel, you're joining a remnant. You're standing with those who refuse to be lulled to sleep while the world celebrates its own destruction. You're choosing to be found faithful when the fire falls. Drop a comment below. Which of these 7 prophecies hit you the hardest? Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to wake up. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video with them right now. Don't wait. The algorithm surfaces comfort, not truth. It's up to us to sound the alarm for those we love. The fire is coming, but so is the glory. And I want you standing in that glory when the king arrives. Subscribe, comment, share. Stay awake, stay faithful. The seal is broken, the fire is kindled, and together we're going to watch it all unfold.